Welcome to the Russo brand. I'm Cav Manning from the Lingus Mafia podcast. Some of you know me from there. I do a show with Billy as well on the Dirty Sheets. I do my own show, Lingus Mafia podcast. And now I'm teaming up with Billy again for a new adventure here with Russo's brand. And we're going to go over, I like to call it Save the Last Ride, right, Billy?
Yeah, he's joking because for those of you that don't listen to our show, I was watching the Chicago Bulls show and I called it Save the Last Dance, which is a film where a black guy teaches a white girl how to dance to hip hop, right?
Basically. Yeah, exactly. So, and I would like to introduce you, like they don't know who you are, but I like to lead us into a show by always saying something about you, Billy. And I would like to say, now welcome the shit disturber, satin killer, your own personal dirty Jesus, Mr. Billy Body.
Actually, interesting. I read the email out that WWE sent me about Ryan Satin today on Russo's show. Yeah, it was very generic, but yeah, it was still worth reading. That I reached out to them.
And so they sent you a letter. This isn't just a press release you grabbed.
No, I emailed them. I emailed a guy who asked me a few years ago if Austin was willing to have some photos of Linda McMahon. I don't know if you remember that. If I knew, yeah, I did know you then. Of course I did.
Yeah.
Yeah, Austin had those pictures of Linda, and they asked me if it was okay.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And then they gave me an email, so if you ever need anything.
Austin. You always have to preface that.
Yeah, my son Austin had pictures of Linda, and they said, if you ever need anything, then hit us up. But I've already got my tickets and things covered. Mm-hmm. So I haven't actually contacted this guy, and I said, hey, you remember me, like from this time, my son and everything? And he shot me an email back and said the Saturn situation was, you know what, let me read it.
Yeah, I mean, you already broke this on Russo, so
yeah. It's not that great, but it's a response at least.
Mm-hmm.
So I contacted him about the goings on of Ryan Satin, etc., and he responded to me saying, "Hi Billy, Ryan Satin is independently employed by Fox, not by the WWE. However, multiple consumers have previously reached out to us, and we are aware of Ryan's standing in the eyes of many in the WWE universe, including our on-screen talent." Sorry, it says including some of our on-screen talent. While your complaints will be noted, I can inform you that you can expect a satisfying resolution within the next week. I hope to see you and Austin again at a show very soon. Regardless.
That's so funny because he is trying to no-sell that he got shit canned and that it was because of the petition and people writing in and having him on the sex offender list that's going around. And it's just, there's cuts. And like we made fun on the Dirty Sheets podcast, they couldn't afford the $400 a month, I guess, to have him on. So,
well, I mean, the show may or may not be gone, but the fact that he was told you're not even going to be part of this if it ever comes back, I think is pretty significant. Plus, there's other places to go in the company. We see that little pipsqueak, what's his name? Not Sam something. And then Rosenberg.
What's his, you know what? I don't know his fucking first name.
It's Sam something.
No, that's Sam Roberts. Is he?
Yeah, Sam Roberts. That's the one I mean. Sam Roberts.
I thought you were talking about the other asshole, Rosenberg.
Yeah, Rosenberg. Peter Rosenberg.
Who talks too.
Yeah,
the fucking radio show that nobody hears. And yeah, sure, I might be on a podcast nobody hears, but that's a fucking podcast. He's on a fucking citywide, radio show, and no one's ever fucking heard of him with his Bobby Heenan cosplay.
Yeah, and I don't think Satin. Well, I know Satin's not going to be one of those guys off the back of that email. So that's why the day before I was tweeting out shit like at FS1, Satin's days are numbered at FS1 or whatever. I wasn't doing that because I set myself up to look like a moron, and that's why I also wasn't pushing the petition that hard because I was going to buy advertising on it and just didn't bother because you can buy advertising on Facebook, which I always do for all posts. But also you can buy advertising with the actual petition company, which is more expensive. But I didn't bother doing that because I knew what was coming. So,
all right. Well, I guess we should get into the reason why we're here. It's not just to be the handsome show, right, Billy?
Russo was
I haven't had any work.
Russo was telling me about that today. Russo was saying that he tells He thinks he doesn't this whole Me Too thing and speak out and all that's gone too far. He said because previously he got some shit because he used to have listeners on. Sure. And he'd always ask him like, "Are you married?" And then he would ask to like see what their wives look like and stuff. And he said he would always. The idea was always to compliment them, but he also got heat for like doing it because he said like now you can't even compliment women anymore. And he says I compliment women, I compliment men. He said I always compliment you for your looks. So
he got to tell you how handsome you are.
He does, but he hasn't put me on the brand poster yet. You know, the poster that comes out to subscribe to.
Yeah, they got everybody on there, right?
He still got me not on there yet.
It's a matter of time, and you should submit the picture that you had as Jesus wrapped in a shroud with the women grabbing your legs like the Star Wars poster almost.
Yeah, it has to be a real life picture though. I can't send the cartoon over.
Yeah. Well, we'll have a show one day of what plastic surgery Billy's had to be so handsome, and how I've had none, and I'm just naturally a handsome devil. Okay.
His teeth are not British, you see.
Yeah, he didn't get the British teeth, so he lucked out. We ran into that on one of
these I did get the British teeth on the one the bottom, but these are now paid for. So to be as less.
That's good. Our show is very transparent. We will never lie about anything. Everything is free game and up in the air for everybody. Unlike these other posers who stand on soapboxes and yell at everyone else, and they become the most guilty person of all of them, which I love. I just love the people who scream and clutch their pearls, and they're so offended, and then shit comes out, and guess who's on those lists?
That was the funniest thing about this whole thing with this speaking out thing. It was a lot of people I didn't like, and there was a lot of people back in 2017 that were telling me this is not how you talk to women. Your chauvinistic and misogynistic views are not welcome in 2017. All of these guys were involved in it. Joey Ryan, especially, he was even telling me he was going to slap me if he ever saw me at a show. But the thing is that he's never going to be.
You're probably very scared by Joey Ryan. You're going to make you grab his dick.
I can't see him being at the show again. But that's the thing. I actually had to defend not all of them, like Joey Ryan and Jimmy Havoc and a few others. Like, you know, some of the claims are indefensible. But we've seen some of the ones that aren't so bad, like the whole thing with trying to get Sammy Guevara fired and Austin Aries had to defend himself today, and the Matt Riddle one didn't seem that bad to me. So there you go.
And especially when it was bullshit and someone making shit up. That's the problem. It's got to flip into a movement for men being wrongly accused, and because you're damned if you do and damned if you don't. If you
listen to the show.
Pretty, you'll get in trouble. So, and then if you do, you're in trouble.
Listen to the show, Russo, because I do talk about this problem with feminism, because feminism has grown to become anti-man, like man is bad and and women are good, and it's almost a movement now to hate men and to hate the way, and then to stop us from doing things that we've done for a long time. And obviously, as I'm saying, I have to keep doing this, and I did this on a Russo show. I'm not saying that it's okay to rape people and it's okay to drug people and it's okay to be a predator and it's okay to be a groomer, but some of the stuff that's coming out, I honestly felt it was just a lack of understanding in terms of a lot of inexperienced wrestling people that don't have a lot of sexual activity and don't have a lot of friends and don't have a lot of social engagement and haven't been used to being a part of universities and colleges and groups of guys and sports teams and all that kind of stuff, or even being in our kind of group chat and just being involved and having that male camaraderie and seeing how we all speak. So, and how men communicate. And a lot of what I've seen is guys communicating, even including that David Starr video this morning. But I'm almost scared to defend people because of the target on my back. But I've done the show I've done now, and I've come out and I've been very open and honest about my own experiences, including even cheating, even being so addicted to this lifestyle. I even cheated on my wife, which is what led to my divorce, and just being very, very addicted to this, and how nobody will understand it unless you've been involved in that, in terms of what these guys are trying to do and how they're trying to make the most of their fame and opportunities. Although I will say this, which I didn't say on Russo's show because I try to behave myself more on there. The women coming after me and the women coming after wrestlers are a little bit of a different level, because those them wrestling chicks, they ain't that great.
Yeah, I mean, there's always gold in them there hills at times, and
Yeah.
they're famous, so you're gonna get the higher echelon. But yeah, this is how our podcast usually goes. We'll have a subject, Billy, and for the first 10 minutes, it'll be something completely different.
We
And
got to do the 10 minutes though, because everybody will just come here and we'll get straight to the point and start the show. And then also, this is, I assume you're taking the lead here, but I assume this isn't going to be so episode 1 and episode
no,
2 and episode 3 and on the 15-minute mark he said this and on the
yeah,
20 mark he said that. No.
that's nearly impossible. And the way I have a couple notes here, I just took
Have we
notes
mentioned
throughout.
what we're doing here, or are they just going to be looking
Yeah,
at
save the last ride, we said. So
the
yeah,
last?
we're reviewing.
In case you didn't get a joke already, it's The Last Ride, the Undertaker documentary, parts 1 to 5. It concluded at the weekend, and we're covering it all here on this show. So go on.
Yeah. So they started off with the dates that this is being filmed, and it's from 2017 to 2020. And we're supposed to go on the ride, which starting this, when they even say the last ride, your first thought is, okay, is this going to be a documentary on him being done? That's the first. I don't know what else you could possibly think when you see this. There has to be a payoff at the end, which we'll get to at the end. Obviously, I'm sure everyone has seen this. But is there any other thing that you thought this was going to go to toward the end?
I thought that they would end up with the obviously with the boneyard match, and then possibly talk about
What's next?
not wanting to go out like that, because him saying that the boneyard match, I would assume he would have said that was supposed to be it. I wanted to work with AJ Styles, but we gave people the boneyard match, and I'm happy with it. But it's not a match that I envision myself going out with, and I still would like to do it properly with maybe AJ or somebody one more time. So I would still think that it would have ended with the last ride, meaning that he's in search of the last ride, as in he's on the last ride, but the search is not over. And I thought they would leave it with more of a conclusion where they were saying that you wondering where the final match would be, or even a case of the last ride would substitute for the word run, last run. So would be he would be ended up feeling good and wanted one more WWE title run and one more WrestleMania main event, and then he would be done. That's what I thought it might be going to. I never thought we would get another retirement, especially when he already had one that didn't stick, and now he's going to do another one that won't stick.
Okay. So we see the debut. We're going to go through the entire career they do on here, and his debut is November 22nd, 1990 at the Survivor Series. How old were you when he came out?
7, or had I just turned 8? I think I was 7.
I was 14.
Okay.
So for me, Undertaker has been a staple when it comes to, like, since you've watched. Obviously, I watched before he got there, and I was watching in the 80s and all that kind of stuff. But I don't even know if you would call it your adult life at 14, but being more aware of everything and what's going on, he's been there since practically I've watched. There's only a few years before he gets there. And to see my favorite part of the entire thing is to see the behind the scenes stuff from back in those days where he's doing promos, sharpening things with the steel and cutting the coffins and all that kind of stuff. That to me is the best part of everything, is him going through all that, and you see him do it. And I love that they just film everything constantly and never throw anything away, because he does his whole thing and then he's like normal and he's like, okay, let's try this again. And it's shit you never saw or heard from him until extremely recently. Pretty much this documentary is the extremely recently that we've seen him normal, and any little piece of a glimpse. The first time I ever got any normalcy from him was from, I think it was In Your House, and it was Monsoon making a match for Diesel to have a championship match when he was having aggravation with him. And he ran into the room. It was the very end of one of the In Your House, and he ran in and he said, "Gorilla Monsoon, make the match, but it'll be a cold day in hell before Diesel ever wears the title of the World Wrestling Federation." I remember like it was fucking yesterday.
That would have been the end of the '96 Royal Rumble.
Was that Royal Rumble?
Well, Diesel screwed Undertaker and put his finger up at him at the end of the '96 Royal Rumble. It was like the most edgy thing they'd done up until that point, where the show finished with Diesel with his middle finger up to Taker.
So when he does this, though, he starts off with a normal voice. And I was like, oops, because he's like, Gorilla Monsoon, make the match. So then he turns into the other, and you're like, oops, I got a glimpse of a normal human being for a minute. And then the next time we really see him being anything normal is the American Badass thing, where he's Biker Taker. And he's pretty much himself, which a lot of people hated. Biker.
Yeah, but I disagree. I think that like there was a normalization of Taker coming from the Foley feud onwards. I think he started with Mankind in '96, and then Paul Bear turned heel on him. But then as we were hitting towards '97, when he had that second championship run, before they brought Kane in, where they scaled it back a little bit, he was doing some stuff there where he was going up against the Canadians, and he was saying he was going to kick Bret Hart's ass and all this kind of stuff. And then even through like '98, when he was working against Austin, when he was the babyface, and they were heading into that match at MSG, we saw a lot less. We saw mainly a guy who was doing like Undertaker cosplay, and we didn't really see too much of those superpowers going into that Austin feud. And then obviously in '99 we get the Ministry stuff, which the thing is they didn't touch on too much on in terms of character development through those times. They very much breezed past. It was like the Last Dance in that time, where occasionally they'd go back to Jordan starting out, or when the Bulls did this, or when the Bulls did that, but they'd always keep it mainly focused on the current season.
Yeah, they would. You never saw, which was very surprising. And I'm wondering if it's because they were worried about controversy about like it's satanic stuff, and they're going to hear about shit. And also when he had Austin on the cross, which they say is not a cross, it's a symbol. Because remember they got in trouble for that at the time. They couldn't do that. Never showed that for shit. Never got his. I would like to hear his thoughts on when that happened. If he was like, "Yeah, we got in trouble and it was so stupid. I thought this and that."
There's a lot of stuff in it that's not there that I would like to see more of. And if he does come back, then maybe there can be more of a retrospective documentary in terms of going through those years, because I felt they went through it very quickly in terms of there was a little bit about the Undertaker character, and then also maybe I'm thinking of the Steve Austin podcast as well, where Vince McMahon calls him up and goes, "Hello, is this the Undertaker?" And he just yes. That wasn't. I don't believe that was in this documentary. Maybe it was, but this is just bits of information I've just picked up about Taker in the last 6 months. Is my point.
And he thought he was Eggman.
Yeah, exactly. And but there isn't too much in terms of how the character played out over the first year, getting to the main event and facing Hogan, having that babyface run. He did talk about being stuck with all of these monsters, and he has spoke about previously being friends with Yoko and being happy to work with him because he was a monster that could move. We got little bits in there, but we haven't heard anything about working with Jake the Snake, winning the title from Hogan, coming through into the Attitude Era and what part he would play in that. Even like stuff like on getting the run from WrestleMania 13, and then also the night Owen Hart died, Undertaker actually won the championship on that night as well. We've never heard anything about that. I don't think we will, and I'm probably asking for too much, but I would have liked to hear more about that run in terms of what was going on backstage, how he felt, when he was working with all these monsters constantly and had to be in his show. He did touch on it. I remember in a documentary, he did touch on the fact where he said, I had to work this style for a long, long time, and I wasn't able to sell and all of that. He did touch on it a bit. But I would have liked to see more of that. But we did remain very much focused. And I can't say that I didn't like the stuff in terms of from the first episode being backstage and getting to that match with Roman and how he was banged up. And I was surprised to see him, because I didn't see it in the ring, but I was surprised to see him walking around like that, where he could barely walk before that Roman match. And this was a guy that he decided to put in the ring, and he's walking around the hotel and he's on last, and he didn't know he was going to be on last to the weekend. and he's limping around WrestleMania. So I don't know what they were expecting there, and I don't know what Undertaker was, why he was expecting so much of himself when he can barely walk around. That match was almost destined to be bad from those pictures, from those videos that we saw.
I'd almost figure he's banking on adrenaline. Like, as fucked up as you are and as bad a shape you might be and things hurting and everything, with a crowd like that going crazy, I would think you can push past something for 20, 30 minutes and not even know about it and be able to pretty much do the same things. But as they say, your body fails you. You're in your head. Maybe you don't even feel the pain and you go to jump and there's no legs pushing you because that's just what it is. Your muscles are shit and everything's broken down. Your legs, your ACLs, whatever is out of place. And that was probably what was going on. They get into a lot of Taker and Vince's relationship, and something that I never heard, other than they said, we know that Taker will take a bullet for Vince, as he says, and that he named his kid, the middle name is Vincent.
Right.
I mean, when you look at the Wars days and everything, that was always in my head that Taker's the only one who didn't take the money when offered. That was a name, I mean, everybody was leaving, Boss Man, whoever the hell wanted to go, but to stay there and be that loyal. And like he said, going down with the ship, if it goes down. And plus I think he had a bit of a safety net to where if this goes down, are you telling me WCW is not going to bring him in as the Undertaker and they're going to be like, you didn't jump, we're going to make you a jobber? I mean, WCW was retarded, but there's no way they wouldn't have been like, okay, well, now he's going to be our, big time guy if they go ahead with that.
But at the same time, do you think that he had the realization that if he had jumped ship while the two companies were in battle, that he couldn't go over and be the Undertaker? So what do you do then? Are you Mean Mark, or are you in the NWO as a straight up real name character, not doing that stuff anymore? I think that he almost knew that it was okay for Hall and Nash to go over, and maybe even Brett, who didn't do well over there. But what were WCW going to do with the Undertaker, who's playing a character that WWE owned? So I think there was he gets a lot of credit, and he does seem like he's very loyal, and I don't think he would have gone anyway. Mike Sting didn't come the other way as well. But there is a part of me that still thinks that, well, I don't think you really even had that choice, because, yeah, okay, they would have got you, but they would have got you to get you away from WWE, to hurt them, more so than having ideas for the Undertaker.
That's a very good point. Instead of helping themselves, just hurting the other side.
Yeah.
And at the same time, you could tell he cares about his career and cares about his legacy, because if he didn't, all that doesn't matter. He could say, I don't care what they call me, if they have me job out, whatever they want to do. I'm getting paid millions of dollars and I'm set forever. That is the more important thing in your life, being able to live. Sure, you want your legacy and everything like that, but if somebody said, oh, you could be held up in high regard and everyone's going to know you forever, but you don't have any money to live and you're going to have a shitty life, I'm taking money so I could live a nice life and do what you have to do. But he was so far ahead in that career. I think he was pretty safe either way he went. I don't think it was a lose situation at all for him. I mean, he could have went over there and just been badass Mark Calloway. They could have done that. He could have been, himself as biker guy and just been with NWO, because they all took their regular names anyway when they went and did that. So he could have survived fine, I think, over there and done that. But I think the better gamble was what he did. If it goes down in WWE, he looks like a big loyal guy that stayed till the end, and he would have just gotten a job at the other place with the name Undertaker, because they would have owned him. So,
and that's the thing. You can't just bring him into WCW and call him the Dead Man or something like that, because WCW got sued for gimmick infringement for Scott Hall talking in the Razor Ramon accent. Yeah. So there's no way you could bring him in as a ghoul zombie character, because the whole trademark is the entire act. So yeah, I don't know. I think that he knew that he was always better off staying. It's not, and it's also by '97 he was on that 7-figure deal anyway when he stayed. So he made 7 figures all the way through that. I remember seeing a magazine that published, but way before Dirt Sheets, that published everybody's annual earnings, and it was Hogan and Brett who were at the top 2 at the time, and Undertaker and Sting were in there around about the same money, but just getting them from different companies. So,
what do you think he was? What was he pulling down as far as your speculation?
he was pulling down $1 million guaranteed.
$1 million a year.
Guaranteed.
It almost seems like it's not enough when you look at like sports and stuff like that, and that he's.
But look at the year. Look at the year. I mean, now everybody makes that, because now even Roman and Seth are having $3-4 million years, and Orton's been having that throughout his entire career. I think $1 million and plus merchandising and everything, and that was a lot back then. If you look at, I mean, Steve Austin's guarantee in the end was about 2. Was about 2.5, something like that. But then he ended up pulling in between 8 to 10. So you got to thinking the Taker was making about $3 million a year at the time. So
figure with that merchandise and everything, if you get one shot of the 10 and you're not an asshole with your money, you're done. You're set forever.
And that's that contrary. And Meltzer put this report out saying that he keeps wrestling because he's made some like bad investments. I didn't see anything in his documentary about bad investments. From the people I know, I've never been told anything about bad investments. I've been told that he has a big property portfolio, and obviously you can't lose money in property. So I think that just comes down to Meltzer seeing that he's still wrestling and having to have a reason, which he always has to have. But most of the time, you can clearly see in his documentary that there's nothing to do with it at all. I don't get any inkling of that at all.
So moving along, what they had, they were asking Taker if he would be in the next WrestleMania, and this is the one where he went against Cena, when in New Orleans, where we were hanging out. So Taker has to decide. He's going to train for a while, see how he does, and everything like that. And he gets his win. He had his surgery beforehand. He gets himself right, and he trains to go for 30 minutes. And he gets himself together. And this shows you it does not matter how good of a best friend you are with Vince. It's what Vince wants. And that's the end. You might get a little bit of pull, but overall, it's on him. And it's the worst. Not quality, but quantity. I was like, they don't ever have Taker show up to the shows. It's that whole Bray Wyatt deal where he just never showed up, and it's Cena doing the work the whole time. Egging him on to show up, egging him on to show up. Cena has to be in the crowd like he's not going to be there. And then Taker shows up, and it's pretty much a choke slam, and it's the end. And so that's the match, which, yeah, we got our, annual Taker visit. But, I mean, Jesus Christ, this could have been a match. It had to be that Vince is terrified that he's going to stink up the joint. Is that your assumption too?
I have no idea. I didn't understand that at all. Like, I have conversations with people in the WWE, including some wrestlers, and I'm always told that it's Vince's show. You can come up with all the ideas, and I'm always told we've got good writers here. Like, I've been told that ideas that I send over to people that they like, but they also say that we have other people here that have given us things that we like, and the man on top just knocks this shit down. And the final decision comes down to him, and it always is an audience of one who you're trying to please. And he saw this match, be it for the reasons that you're saying, Undertaker couldn't go, or just saw it as he saw it in terms of, I want this to be a short match. And even Cena, being Mr. Company, if you noticed on the documentary, turned around and said, this has to be, we have to showcase this as the return of the Undertaker. We have to show that the Undertaker's back. So he was saying, in a kayfabe way, that he needs to beat me easily. Like, it makes sense to me. So Vince has obviously made it make sense to both guys, and Cena's now echoing the Vince pitch. But I don't think Taker is as Mr. Company Cena. He is obviously Mr. Loyal WWE, but Cena's very, very professional, and like will always say what he needs to say in front of the camera, in front of all interviews outside of WWE, on all the WWE documentaries. But you could tell Undertaker backstage was saying, I prepared for 30 minutes, but Vince doesn't see it that way. And it is what it is. So yeah, he wasn't on board with that, and he did train. And I think that if he could have convinced Vince pretty easily that he's not going to stink up the joint, and he would have trusted him. But I just think this was a vision that Vince had, and it came out in Cena's words, where they said we have to show people the Undertaker's properly back, and to Vince that was a squash match.
After this, we get into
But I have
Saudi's.
to say, sorry, it was not anyone else's vision. It was not anyone else's vision. It wasn't Taker's vision, and it wasn't the crowd's vision, because we were there, and I remember that was one of the most disappointing aspects of the show, because the entrance and everything was great, and I would have just killed for like 10 more minutes, because that was a match that we wanted to see. We wanted to see Cena on the streak for a long time, because had that match have happened 10 years earlier, and the way Cena was getting treated by the fans at the time, and how he was being overpushed, fans would have actually believed that Cena could have won, which would have been a really great, like 50-50 match in the streak.
Yeah, I mean, we're past that time of the streak being done at Mania, which I really wish they got way into that, because, like you said, I don't know. I mean, I know they were having Brock lose a bit before that, and it helped, but I don't know if that's the thing that really, like, they could have just had him start winning. It doesn't matter that he beat The Undertaker to do it, but I think they could have used it if they were going to do that Cena turn and have him beat Taker and be the one who does it to end the streak. That, talk about on fire for hatred. Or even if it was to turn Roman, because you saw the night after Mania where Roman beat him, and he said, all he did was say, "It's my yard now," and he stood there for over 10 minutes with everyone booing the piss out of him.
But they still didn't turn him heel off the back of that. You had the hottest heel. You had the hottest heel in the world at that point, and you didn't go with it. He's in a feud with Braun Strowman the next month, and Braun Strowman's supposed to be the babyface, the heel, and he's getting cheered the whole time for killing Roman Reigns. So this was a frustrating period, because I didn't think 2017 was that bad. I thought coming off 2016, when they just done the brand extension for the first time, I thought the company was in a really good position. And then we get this really good WrestleMania, which WrestleMania 33 was. Brock's got the title again. We've got people chasing him for it. But we know that it's going to be Roman, because Roman wasn't turned heel. We know we're getting to WrestleMania 34. Taker says it in the documentary as well, where he says that at WrestleMania 30, he had to lose because I knew where Brock was going. And Brock was going to next year's WrestleMania with Roman at 31. And that didn't work out. And we knew at WrestleMania 33, again, we were going to Brock and Roman. And again, it didn't work out. So a lot of this does center around Roman Reigns. In a weird way, Roman Reigns beating The Undertaker at 33 was kind of justified in a way. It was kind of ironic as well, because the loss at WrestleMania 30 was because they wanted to anoint Roman the year after. And they wanted Brock to be as strong as possible. And the fact is that I feel that Taker, because he was giving the WrestleMania commitment year by year, he was actually even said it on the documentary that he was from 25 to 26 to 27 to 28 was on a year by year basis where they would give him the phone call. I think without that commitment, that's another reason why he beat him, because you never know when he's coming back. And possibly Vince at this point got sick of not knowing and just needed to make that plan with Brock. Otherwise, if you know, maybe you make WrestleMania 31 Undertaker versus Roman Reigns, and he does get beat by Roman. But he doesn't know, because Taker's not committing a year out. He's making the commitment, from what I understand from that documentary. I've lost Cav. Let's call him, see where he is. He says, pause it, I got bounced. I don't know what happens now.
Yeah. All right. Well, someone
I
can
don't
edit the.
I don't know how he edits. I don't know how he edits that out.
Oh, well, you know what? I could deal with it. Send it to me, and I could put it on iMovie, and I could send it back out.
How do I send it to you? How do I send you to YouTube? Do you know how to download a YouTube video?
I'll find out how. I could get it. I'll ask a couple friends of mine. I guarantee I could get it. So
Okay,
I
okay.
ain't worried.
So it was about 34. So what was I saying?
We're going through the Cena.
No, I was talking about the Roman thing. I was saying he just beat him, and
it could have been. They could have made him better if they Taker wasn't going year by year.
Yeah.
He was only doing year by year. So
let's find up a pickup point and just say okay or something, and then
all right,
and
well,
do it like 38. Have you got a timer on there?
Yeah, I see the timer. I wrote it down right now for 36 minutes. Around there is when we got cut to 38.
Oh, I had it at 34 minutes.
Oh, 34 is when it got cut?
Hmm.
That long? I was gone that long?
Yeah.
Shit.
Just go at 39 with whatever you want to say, to my point.
Sure. Okay. We'll go at 39. Fuck. You know, I had the fucking iPad plugged in the whole time, and it was draining battery as it was plugged in. So that's fucking great. 39. Resume. Okay. Here we go. So after that, moving on from Brock issues and who they should have had beat the streak, which they didn't really show us and pay too much attention of. This disaster that happens in Saudi with the whole tag team match, which for one, I was shocked Shawn came back. That was the original thing that I was like very surprised by, that Shawn came out of retirement, which part of me was glad he did because I would like to keep watching him. You know, what the hell? And, you know, I'll take as much Shawn as I can. Obviously, he was great. But I remember being on the thread with you and the other guys that were always talking on our text thread. And I'm watching this at work because it's like at 9 a.m. for me. You actually got to watch it like a normal human being, like I watch pay-per-views like at
Yeah,
5 or whatever.
I don't mind the Saudi stuff for time, just the quality's bad. So
Yeah. So I'm watching this and I can't wait to see it. And this comes on, and it is the biggest car wreck. We could not stop texting and saying, "Oh my God, it's one thing after another." And I'm glad that they can make fun of it and say, "This is a effing disaster." I mean, the best. I laugh my ass off when Kane gets punched in the head and it looks like his head falls off because his mask comes off to the ground.
all
And
stuff that never happened to any of these guys before, just all in one match. Just everything falls apart. Yeah.
And Triple H tearing his pec. It's like, it's everything. And the pedigree is off. They go down before the pedigree happens, and it is a car wreck. And then Shawn doing a moonsault misses by a mile.
Missed the super kick too, I think.
Oh man. And he says, you see him come into the back and he's laughing and he's like, missed it by that much. And so they go through that whole thing, which continues Taker in trying to find his last match, which he's like, oh, that's a way to end it. But meanwhile, I think that's a bit of a lie about that could have ended it, because they were setting something else up after that, right? So there was
he had the Triple H match. He had the Triple H match before that, because he actually worked a lot for him in 2018, because he had the match with Cena, then they had him against Rusev in Saudi, then they had him against Triple H in Australia, which a lot of people said was the worst match those two had. And when Undertaker and Triple H said it was a good match, but I didn't think it was. And then they had them going up against DX, Kane and Undertaker against DX. So I think at that point he had no other plans. And obviously then he's walking around WrestleMania 35, and then that's when he he's walking around saying to people, he goes, I feel weird being here. I don't like being here and not being a part of the show. He said he thought he would be all right till he got there. And next thing we know, after 35, we see him doing matches again. We see him doing that Goldberg match, and in the match with Drew and Shane. So it's weird because, yeah, maybe he was ready to be done, but like that match certainly wasn't the one. But it's a weird one thing I will say about this documentary, which it's a weird thing because it's hard not to like The Undertaker, because as you were saying earlier, you've been watching him through most of the time you've been watching. It was only about 3 years or so for you. For me, he's always been in it since I started watching. Yes, I've gone back and got those. They're up there. Those purple videotapes. I'd love to go and get one down. Actually, from up there, from behind me, I have all these old.
Go ahead. Go get your tape.
I'll get your tape.
Let's see what you got. And we all get to stare at Billy's ass and girlish figure as he gets his things that he never seen a guy with so much action figures and memorabilia. Anytime he's always looking around for things. He's constantly looking and getting signed left and right, going to hotels where he stays with all the rest. Obviously, he knows some people as well. So
I pull down just a chunk of the old tapes. So we used to get it in these hard cases. These are just some Slam 89, 90. I just pulled down a chunk of SummerSlams, 91. But we used to get them in these like hard boxes like that. And I used to watch all these tapes. But if I took you up, you know what I'll do? I'll take my laptop up there, see if we can get some.
Oh boy! Look at this on the road with Billy.
Oops, I took you off the stream.
Okay.
Can you see behind me here? Let me put the light on.
Yeah. Okay, there's Debbie Does Dallas. What else we got over there?
I just made that mess now, but they were really neat before.
All videotapes. See, you're as horrible as me with videotapes because you're like, you can't get rid of them. Even though
they're all there. They're all there. And as we go down, then we get to the Hasbro WWE stuff along here. But yeah, I'll go through that properly one day. This is the worst time because I'm lighting this room up with great difficulty at the moment. It's nighttime for me. It's daytime. Cav.
We were going to call this show Billy After Dark because they have Big Brother After Dark. So I figured it would fit in pretty well if we did that. And plus, the time zones are from California to England.
As I was saying, what was I saying? I was saying, yeah, I caught up with the old stuff, the Hogan era and everything on tapes. But The Undertaker was there from when I started watching in '91. So he was already there. So he was always one of my favorites from that time. So it's difficult for me not to like him or to say anything negative about him and to say negative things about him. But
it's almost like you know the person after that long.
Yeah, exactly. But there's a but here. Michelle McCall, some of the stuff that she was saying on this documentary on behalf of The Undertaker, and she was saying and trying, it was almost like she's trying to make the fans guilty, like we were asking him to carry on. She was saying, you people have no idea what he puts himself through every year to get himself in this shape. You have no idea that he hurts all the time. It's like, okay, cool. But he's getting millions of dollars to do just one match a year. Plus, I ain't asking him to do it. You ain't asking him to do it. He wants to do it. Like, why is she putting this guilt trip on all of the fans of the show saying he's doing this, he works so hard for you and he puts his body through hell? Yeah, but it's not for us because I think a lot of people have been fine with him retiring, especially me. I'm sitting right now on a WrestleMania 33 chair, which I went with Austin, and we figured that we'd seen his last match, and I thought that was a really cool thing to come out of Mania. Yeah, the match wasn't good, but you want to be there for his last match. Like, if that is his last match, that was a cool little extra that we got in our WrestleMania, and it was taken away from us. So I wasn't in the camp that was lobbying for Undertaker to wrestle again, because obviously I've been a fan of his, and I don't want him to lower himself to these standards that he was worried about himself, where he was saying, when I become a parody of myself, I don't want people to remember me for coming out with my walker and all this kind of stuff. Or guys making the comment to their kids, oh, this guy, he used to be the shit. He used to be good. Yeah. So she came out with some very odd stuff that made her seem dislikable when she was saying, do you guys not understand what it takes and what he's doing for you? And it's like, shit, I'm cool with him being done. Like, this ain't for me. This is for you and him. So don't put that on me, because I'm not, and I don't think that I think for a lot of people that are cool with him being done.
Meanwhile, I want him to continue on. I'm like, we could get through some easy matches once a year. We could do it. I mean, that's me being selfish.
Well, I think after the Roman thing, and if you're going to carry on now after that Roman thing, after the retirement, then you have to sort of come through with that match. And I think once it happens, we'll all know it. I think everybody will know. I think when he's looking for what he's looking for, he's going to know. And he's trying to say at the end of this documentary that I found it. I think it might be the Boneyard match. I think that was really cool. I think that may be the thing. And I think we're all thinking, well, no, not really, because it's not a proper match. Like, I think everybody will know when that match happens. And I do think AJ might be the right guy to do it. I think Drew could get something out of him, or I'd be happy with him laying down for the Fiend. Like, if it was even some kind of not a squash, but Fiend has the counter, supernatural counter to everything that the Undertaker does. I think at least you owe the company that favor, where you pass the torch and say, this is the guy who's taking over from the Undertaker, and he loses that clean match to Bray Wyatt that he should have lost before. So Bray, I always think, should have been the guy that got this anyway, this streak.
You see, I get the whole lay down thing to be done, and he has said, I remember he said multiple times about, that's the way it should go out, and even if people are telling him no, you should win on the way out. And he's like, no, that's the business. Cause he's very respectful, as we see with the history and all that kind of stuff. I don't know, with him, for me, it's almost like it's very different, almost like the way they treated Flair by having him do the Hall of Fame and still be active. And they wanted to make something special for him. The only active person that's in the Hall of Fame, and then of course lose the next night. But for me, I even wanted to see them honor him because he's one of the greatest things that's ever happened in the business, is for him to even win the title, and win the title and lay it down in the ring the next night and say, I'm done, and go out being the world champion. And that's how he ends his career.
I'm not comfortable with the person that gets buried as a result of that, losing to that man that never defends it, because I don't think that, I think if you're the person that takes that loss, then you're synonymous with the moment of losing to this guy on his way out. I think obviously in this day and age where we don't have many major stars anyway, I don't think it matters as much. I think it's probably something that somebody can do and recover from, because we've seen guys take loads of losses and come back now because we don't have any real stars. But as somebody who's, for example, Drew McIntyre, now as a friend of Drew McIntyre, I don't think that it would do him any good at all if he has a 1 year run with his title and next year he loses it at WrestleMania to Taker and Taker lays it down. I think that's going to be really bad for Drew after 1 year to have that happen to him.
I think if it's a year like that and you're trying to build somebody else, and so it's a different scenario. I think if it was to get his win back from Brock at Mania, and like, you were the one who started me, you know, I lost for the first time. You're the one who started that whole thing, and he gets his win back by doing it. And whoever were to lose to Undertaker, it's different because it's who it is. It's not just some guy they're just going to try to get over for, you know, I wonder if this is going to work. It's fucking Undertaker. So I don't think any wrestler would really even have a problem with that. They would have so much respect for him. And like I said, I think WWE would want to make something different than they have with other people. Like I said, with Flair and the retirement deal.
It's weird though, because I mean, a lot of that Saudi stuff and a lot of the stuff that didn't work out, it was them putting him out here with Goldberg, where he almost got his neck broken, and he talks about that and being 2 inches from losing his life and everything. And they were putting him out there with Kane and Triple H and Shawn. I think that doesn't help you at all, and also Shane McMahon in the other match. I think if you're going out there with Drew, with AJ, with Daniel Bryan and Seth Rollins, there's the guys there that can make you look good for 1 year. I think if he came back and did 1 year now, started today, started SummerSlam, work Survivor Series, work the Rumble, work WrestleMania, there's the guys there that can make you look good. And as I said, I would have him go out to Bray. I think that is the story that you should tell. Either with Taker going in with a title or challenging for the title, streak versus title. Oh, there's no streak versus or career versus title. Sorry. These are the things that I would have done. And as I said, it's throughout the Undertaker's career, there have been times where there's different things that they should have done with him. Like at WrestleMania 25, him and Shawn should have gone on last. Orton and Triple H just no way could carry on with that match. At WrestleMania 27, they made the right decision to go down the Triple H route. They were talking about putting him in there with Drew when he was too young, or Wade Barrett or whatever. At WrestleMania 29, when he worked the match with CM Punk, that should have been CM Punk with the title. 100% CM Punk had that belt for what? It would have been 500 days by that point, and people would have really believed he would have won. That should have been the main event of WrestleMania. The thing with Brock, if you knew Undertaker was hanging around the next year, and he made that commitment to them, then he should have won that match and then lost to Roman the next year. And they should have turned Roman heel, which is the obvious thing to do. And even then, when you're looking at 32 with Shane, there's a better opponent to work with. 34 with Cena, there should have been more time on it. There's loads of errors there.
Who would you put him with instead of Shane? Because that was the year that everyone was hurt. And it was like they were scrounging at that point. I couldn't tell you who the hell was available from that Mania, but I know I was like, shit, Shane, what the hell? And that looked like it was his last match. Then he put his shit on the middle of the ring during that one too, on the steel steps, right? When he left that steel cage thing. And it was like, is the last match really going to be on Shane? And meanwhile, if you watch that Taker After Dark stuff about the last right afterwards, Shane challenges him to another match when they start going, keeping things real life, and then they switch into K5 and starting with.
That's the thing, but within within the documentary that Shane says that as a fan, as a boy that's known him for a long time, I want to see him wrestle, but as his friend, I don't want to see him wrestle anymore. I mean, Shane does say that in the documentary. We also see like emotion from Vince McMahon when he's talking about Undertaker in terms of when he gets asked, what does he mean to you? And then Vince is all like,
it's a little odd. I mean, Jesus Christ. I mean, he's in love with the guy, but he doesn't have to say stop the camera. Sit there, cry about it then if you're really that, heartfelt about it. That's okay.
I think a funny thing in there was when Taker's there for a meeting and Vince is like always late, and he comes in 40 minutes late, and Taker's like, oh, that's not bad for you. And Vince is just fucking, all he's doing is working out. Like all he's doing is working out, and he doesn't want to be disturbed for his workout because Undertaker's there. I thought that was fucking hilarious.
Yeah, he can't go be bothered at all because he's like, we trained back today. The royal we. He trained back. We get into a part too where they talk about the signing that was canceled by Vince. Remember this whole thing that went down, that it was old Conrad Starcast that had Angle in it and it had Taker in it, and people were wondering, and I'm shocked they touched on that. They never said what it was, of course, because God forbid anyone has publicity for anything. And Taker and Vince called him and said, what the hell are you doing? People think you're, gonna go. And it's so weird that Vince is very freaked out by that, because Taker blew it off like, I'm not going anywhere. Why would I go somewhere now in this time of my life? And they end up having a falling out for a while, and no one talks to each other over this for a while, which is so bizarre. So I'm like, does Vince want to have that first time normal Undertaker under his watch? And this kind of would be his breakout interview and everything if it was at Starcast, and it wouldn't be under his umbrella. Is that what he is more concerned about, or is he really concerned that Taker is going to go to AEW?
I think it was more the concern of like, well, when Undertaker said that he didn't know what he was signing up for and who else was going to be there, and he said it was just a signing, and he wasn't interested in doing the Q&A portion of it and whatnot. And I think there was a lot of confusion at the time. We were confused by it because as fans or marks, we knew that Conrad Thompson was linked to it. We knew that AEW were affiliated to the event as well because their pay-per-view was the next day. Taker didn't. We heard that there would be a Q&A attached to it because that was actually part of the thing that was sold, and sold without Taker's knowledge. Apparently, there's a lot of apparentlys here because Taker's saying he didn't know he was answering questions, and that he didn't know that the other company were involved with an event the next day in the same place. So there's a lot of naivety here on Taker's part, and possibly Vince doesn't see it that way, and probably knows Undertaker is a pretty clued up guy who should be more aware of the fact. But then again, I don't understand why he would do it, because I'm also can be on Taker's side as well and understand there's no reason for him to do that unless he's doing it as some kind of negotiating pool. The weird thing about this retirement is that from what we've been told, Undertaker's in the midst of, after that whole incident with the whole Starcade thing, isn't he, or whatever it was called, isn't he in the midst of a new deal? Hasn't Undertaker signed for like 10 more years or something, whether he wrestles or not? Like, isn't it just a case of you're with the WWE, we have you and your name, and we're going to pay you each year no matter whether you wrestle or not, just to do stuff like this documentary?
Yeah, one of those Legends deals that, be an ambassador and just have your likeness and stuff. And this is like the first time Taker's going to do any signings. Like, it's one of the rare times that he's ever or interview, because he never did that. So
that's the thing behind me with all.
Got pissed off about it. It's money taken out of his pocket. He's like, the hell, all this time, and I can't, cash in a little bit. I think that's where Taker was more pissed off about.
With all of this stuff that I have behind me, all these toys I have around the house, I have multiple things of all the people. I only have one thing from The Undertaker, and I don't even put it out just in case at the moment, because just in case it hits the sunlight or has that yellowing or it gets damaged or whatever. Like, I literally have it. It's here, but it's in a box. Like they literally don't have it out because it's so fucking hard to get that autograph. And you can get any. Look at it.
Oh boy.
Anybody else's you can get, but this one I had to.
Did you go to a sign? Or
Sorry?
did you outside of a hotel or something, or what?
No. That's the thing. He doesn't sign at hotels. He does. He's hard to catch anyway. We caught him once on a reception desk, and he did a photo. And actually, I got him signed on a WrestleMania 23 chair, but it's just like one of the signatures with loads on it, and that was at a hotel. But this I queued for at Access, and Access was sold out. Undertaker's Access sells out in about 2 minutes. So I had to pay $600 for a secondary access, $600 for the ticket. And then this is the figure. Don't know if you see the signature or not.
No, when you tilted it, I saw it in the light a little bit. So this is just to pick up the figure, or you're going in line to have him sign it?
Can you see that signing on the
you can see it. Yeah.
You can, right? All right, cool. What was the question?
So you're in line for him to actually physically sign it.
You
give it to him when he signs
it. Access VIP. So it's like an hour queue because they only sell like about 200 tickets, I think, on Access VIP. And then even at the beginning, it's like $199, but those are sold in seconds because it's Taker. So I had to pay $600 to meet him properly because before all I had was like 1 second in a hotel. But he's very, very much ushered away, like the same way when I met Vince. So Vince McMahon I've met once, Undertaker I've met twice. All these other guys, Brett, Shawn, Razor, Diesel, Goldberg, Warrior, 2 autograph signings of Warrior, 3 autograph signings with Hogan, all like very, very easy to get. I don't have Brock Lesnar. I don't have Randy Savage, and I won't have that one. And that's it. They're the only 2. Even The Rock I got at a movie premiere from when I was invited to premieres during Big Brother. I got The Rock at a movie premiere. So that's The Undertaker is one of the hardest to get. So the fact that he's doing these signings, I don't know if I'm for it or not for it, because I like that mystique in terms of there's hardly any Undertaker shit going about apart from those plaques that WWE sell.
How about Benoit?
I have Benoit. Yeah, I texted you before in the group chat. Yeah,
that's a gold one. All right, we're getting into the last act of the final episode here, and this is where we're gearing up for this Boneyard match. Where, if you think about it, to end a career, his whole career is him being, Mr. Grave Digger and all that kind of stuff, and that it is a graveyard match is what it is, and that's what he does. And so he's setting this up with AJ, and they're going through it. And I like that they have with AJ out there talking shit, like touching close to home, and McCool getting pissed off about it. I'm like, must be a little close to home then, if that's the case, if she's actually pissed off by it, that she's controlling Undertaker. And when he's training for this and they're going through, what to do with this match and driving home, he gets a call that his fucking brother dies right before this is done, which can't be fun because, and of all things, he's got to call his mother to say your son is dead.
When did he die of the COVID? Did he die of the COVID?
No, heart attack. Massive heart attack. Boom, done. His said his niece called and said, my dad had a heart attack, and he's like, oh shit, what hospital is he in? Nope, didn't make it. So it was kind of like the Warrior. Grab your chest, drop, massive heart attack, done. Just that quickly. So, and he can't go because he's stuck with all this kind of stuff. So that's gotta really fucking suck.
We can't because there was no funerals at the time anyway, like in terms of there was no people allowed at funerals also. But the other thing was, I thought you missed out something there in terms of the phone call he received from one AJ Styles to even do this match in the first place. I thought that was interesting because he watched him on Austin's podcast, and AJ just straight up just phoned him and went, do you want to work with me?
Mm-hmm. And thought about it for a while and then decided to mess with him and say, and had Vince call AJ. And AJ falls for it for a while too. saying, "Oh, we're gonna set him up with some guy in Tennessee that he wants to work with, just to bust his chops." Um, and it's interesting that, well, they say, AJ is going to be the best one you could work with. He's the best in the business. The only problem, obviously, is that he's way smaller than Undertaker for
Right.
height. Um, but technique and everything, and not getting hurt, which when they thought was going to be at a real match outside, um, that's the only thing that gets to me about final match, that it was not in front of a crowd. But you know what? This that we saw on the Boneyard match is probably better than anything we would have gotten if it was a regular match.
And that was the other thing in terms of this Boneyard match, opening up the doors now for more Boneyard matches in terms of, as I said, the Bray Wyatt situation. You could go in many different cinematic ways with Bray in terms of you could go to his realm or Taker's realm. They could win one each. And then they could finish it in the ring. You could do an in-ring match with AJ. You could go cinematic with Sting. There's a lot out there that people want to watch, like be it in-ring with Sting, cinematic with Sting, definitely cinematic with Bray. The real AJ match, you can still get carried by Rollins, with Bryan, with Drew. Like this, it seems like now is the time where this guy could have a really good year in the business, or at least come in and out and make it 2 years and set that retirement for WrestleMania 39 and then go into the Hall of Fame at 40. Because I now, as I was saying, even though I don't like the fact that she came on here and said, you have no idea how hard he's working or whatever. Well, I was ready for it to be done at 33. I felt that was perfect. Now you've done this and you've had those bad matches that you've had. I think you go and work with the people that can erase those matches. And I don't think there's going to be much for Taker to do, like chuck a leg out, do a choke slam. He's going to be on the offense. These guys are going to sell like the hell out of their bodies for him. So I don't see the problem now. I've gone the other way in terms of I think that there's the people are there to make you look good for a year, or at least not work with all of them, but at least pick a couple. I would like to see him work this year's Survivor Series because that will mark exactly 30 years to the debut, which I think will be great. And then I'd like to see him go out at Mania because I think that will be good as well.
I've always thought that whole thing with make it to Survivor Series so it's always perfectly on time. And then the problem is always there's such space between, like, equally Mania and Survivor Series, to where you make it to Mania and then you go, just make it to Survivor Series, make it that year. When you get to Survivor Series, you go, I gotta get to Mania. Let me get there. And it's just going to be a vicious cycle forever because you want to go to Mania because it's the big thing. But then you want to click your year.
Okay, what? Doesn't feel like that. It doesn't feel like that this year. You think it? No. It is like we're not even at SummerSlam yet. Like we got Extreme Rules coming up. This is a long year where it just feels like that Boneyard match. That Boneyard match feels like it was a long time ago already.
Yeah. We should do other shows on so will sports get canceled again and never finish? I think shit's not going to get finished, but that's for another fucking show. Getting to this, we finished this match, which is a really good match. I actually made the girlfriend watch this match because I said, here's something, check this out. You might enjoy this because it's not our wrestling match, because she's not interested in sitting here watching wrestling, especially when Mandy Rose comes on the screen. So her watching this, she was like, oh, that was different. It was better than normal. She wasn't thrilled with it, but she said it was better than
my dad. Austin made my dad watch it too. So
there you go. So it's something you could have people watch, almost like this could be one of those things you make people watch the same way you made people watch Taker and Mankind. Because anytime somebody wasn't a wrestling fan, anytime someone says something, and I'll be watching something and they look over your shoulder and you're watching this and they giggle because it's fucking wrestling and, oh, I'm an idiot for watching it. You go, hold on. And you start scrambling for King of the Ring and go, just watch this beginning. You don't need to watch anything else. And they're like, holy shit, when they see it. So that always, that's always the thing to point to. So they go through this whole match, which I think you said, and I was going to call you out on it because on our text messages, you can correct me though if I'm wrong, because who the hell knows if I remember. When Taker smashes his arm through the window, I swear you were saying bullshit. He didn't cut himself. Who said it was bullshit? Was it you or Nick? Somebody said that isn't fucking real. And we were all debating where I thought it was real. And I'm like, well, maybe I'm a moron because I believe this to be real. But his arm was hanging out. Like you see the chunk on there where he stabs himself with a window. But that turns out that they show, yeah, it was real. And they were pulling out glass from his arm, which was fantastic.
That wasn't me, but yeah.
They dried it up. Like, that's the funny thing where they don't, God forbid, they let it keep going. They're like, okay, cut, wrap, make sure he's not, infected and pull all the shit out and keep it going. And then it's always those bad movie cuts where all of a sudden there's no blood anymore. Where, okay, well, that's why everyone's so cynical now. So I thought the worst part of that match, I think there are a couple things that I didn't like, was all the druids coming out. That I wasn't thrilled by. I was like, okay, enough with, now you're surrounded by, Grim Reapers. That part, and where he goes into the grave and right before he's buried, he magically appears behind AJ. I get it. I get that it's wrestling, and I get Undertaker's supposed to be, magic.
Did you want Kane to turn up there?
You know what? I didn't even think about that, but I would take it. I just didn't want him to magically not be in the hole anymore. He could have got out of the hole, just not by magic and all. The match is won, and then it's, you're not in there anymore. So that kind of stuff is where I'm like, okay. I thought the greatest thing, which I did not see coming at all, is after he obviously talking shit to each other was fantastic, and you couldn't get any better than what they were doing right there with the "please don't bury me" stuff. After he knocks him out, drops him in the hole, and drops the dirt on him, casually walks past the gravestone and wipes the moss off the gravestone, and it has AJ's name on it. I thought that was the fucking greatest. I popped from that one, gets on his motorcycle with Metallica and takes off. I thought that was a really good way to end it.
Yeah, and I think that was one of his points in terms of the motorbike was symbolic of me riding off. And he said that wasn't just there for the sake of it. That felt like that was the right way to ride off into the sunset, like figuratively and literally as well. But I still just don't know. Yeah, it's acceptable. Let's say that it's acceptable as an ending because the match was so different, and it would be up there as one of his best matches. It doesn't go up there with the Triple H matches and the Shawn Michaels matches from WrestleMania, but it's up there in terms of the thing is that what people don't also remember is that after we moved away from the supernatural gimmick that he had in the first few years, he has got a load of matches that are top WWE top 50 level, not even like top 100, like top 50. You got that match with Mick Foley, the Hell in a Cell. And you got loads of matches with Mick Foley, but that one's a top 50. You got the first Hell in a Cell with Shawn, which you can't leave out. You're top 50. Yeah. Then you have the two matches with Shawn, the two matches with Triple H, the match with Punk. He had a good match with Batista at WrestleMania 23. I'm not sure if it's top 50 all time, but everything else I've said it's a lot of stuff to go in there. And then, for this guy to be 6'10", and that size, and then to have these matches, I don't think that's going to happen again. I think even with Drew is probably, I would say, a better worker than Undertaker. He's not going to have the opportunity to have 10 matches up to that caliber, just simply because they've streamlined down with the juice and the Hell in a Cell stunts and all that. Plus, also, the reason why him and Shawn had that match at WrestleMania is because of the star power that they had. And when Undertaker built up that streak, and when Michaels kicked out of the Tombstone, that was 20 years of nobody kicking out of the Tombstone at WrestleMania. Like, it's not like Batista, Orton, all these guys. They didn't have those kickouts before then. It was a big moment just to see someone kick out for the first time. And then afterwards, Triple H kicking out, CM Punk's kicking out, Brock's kicking out too. It does become watered down, but that first match, you had all those moments in there with all those kickouts of the finishers, which helped that match a lot. Without it, the WrestleMania 26 match is actually better in terms of the way that it's structured. But the fact is that we're talking about this huge guy having all of these matches, also having this legendary character, and then having a whole bunch of matches in the top 10 and top 50 of all time. I think that is one of the parts of the legacy that you can't forget. But if it is done, and on the basis of what I said, where do you rate this character in terms of the big picture and the large scale of things?
See, now I was going to actually have a couple questions for you to on our closing here, and that
Okay.
leads us right. For me, he is in the best match of all time for me, where I rank like favorite matches ever, and it's him and Shawn. That match I think is the greatest match I've ever seen. It still holds up, and most matches I think that are the greatest involve Shawn. Him and Angle, him and even Jericho was fantastic. Wouldn't talk about Shawn. So that him and Taker one was so good, and I'm talking about the first one, not the retirement match of Shawn. I thought was the best ever. And my question also was, is Taker the greatest? And I don't know what you would say, because you can't say, I don't know if you got to take it as a whole, as in a creation and a pro wrestler, not like a technician wrestler, because then you would go to Flair or something, or Hitman, shit like that.
I think when you're talking greatest of all time and greatest in WWE, that's the thing with Ric Flair. When I'm looking at a Rushmore, like, he's not in a WWE Rushmore. He had the run in '92, and then he had the run in, and then he had the run when he came back, where he was old man Ric Flair. But his main stuff's in WCW. We're talking about WWE here.
If you're talking about WWE Rushmore, that's and is Taker on there?
That's a show.
That could, you know what? We should probably do a show on it and have we could have multiple different Rushmores where you would have all wrestling together Rushmore, and you have WWE Rushmore. Don't ask me WCW Rushmore by itself. I'll put Mongo on the fucking list. But if you do him, like, you could do best character as Rushmore. So
yeah, but that's the thing. That's the beauty of doing a podcast like that, or doing a show like that, and what's why it'd be so interesting, because you do your Rushmores and you do your best worker and best character and best babyface and best heel, and you look at all these categories, and whatever way that we approach it, which I definitely think is a show that when we return to the brand here next time, we should definitely do the Rushmore show. And that's the thing. You when you do all those categories, you must come to the end of the show, and you must rank all of that in level of importance in terms of, yes, the wrestler, and yes, the character, and then you must come to the Rushmore, because we know Hogan ain't going on as a wrestler, but we know WWE Rushmore doesn't exist without Hulk Hogan. And I guess the question is, in terms of when you do that show, do you continue to, at this point, to go down the route of saying Austin's run was just so unbelievable that he's number one, or does Hogan number one because he's the reason for this entire thing, or do you go with Taker, who's been there for 30 years? And you look at Hulk Hogan's run, which I believe is 9 + 2, which I think is 11, and then he had an odd appearance here and there, but I think it's 11 proper years. And then you look at Austin, where you're only looking at 6 proper years compared to 30. Like, does the time mean anything, or do you just hold these two guys in high regard? And then, obviously, when we do that show, we'll be looking at a fourth one. Does Michaels come in as a worker? Does The Rock come in as the big movie star from the company? Do we then look at Bruno Sammartino? Does Triple H get to be there because of all the stuff he's done? And then obviously now he's still with the company as well. Brett is another one. Andre the Giant. Like, it's such a good show to do. But, like, obviously we're on one guy here. And if you had to guess without doing the big analysis that we're going to do when we do that show, do you think Undertaker goes on right now?
It is such a difficult question, because do you throw, like, the hard part is, like, Bruno Sammartino. We both didn't watch that shit. No. And he was champion for 100 years. Mm-hmm. So it's like, how is he not? And another thing that is not put on there that no one really talks about is, shouldn't Vince McMahon be on that thing?
No,
Or was it just wrestlers then?
just wrestlers.
Just wrestlers. Because otherwise, yeah, Vince should be on that thing first and then Hogan. But I think like the two guarantees are Hogan and Austin. And then you're going to get into shit. There is Andre. There is Bruno. There is, hell, there's, you know what? Well, if you're talking WWE, you can't do Angle then because more of it was in TNA. But,
yeah, I don't think Angle really factors in. I think you're going to be looking, and I think I agree with you as well. I think that the reason you can't put, I mean, there can be an argument made for putting Taker at number 1 overall because of the 30 years, but everybody always goes to Austin and Hogan. Now, if you're going to Austin and Hogan and you're just looking at that star power, then you start to make a case for putting The Rock ahead of The Undertaker. Then you look around and look at the 3 guys you've got in there. Then you say, oh my God, we need a wrestler. Shawn's the best wrestler, I think, that's been through the company. Some will argue it's Brett. And then you're looking at Brett and Shawn. So Taker doesn't get in then as a character, and then Taker doesn't get in as a wrestler. So it's so difficult to do. Well, then do you have one that's a wild card and say he's a really good wrestler and he's a really good character and he's been here in a really, really, really long time, so he has to go on.
You know, overall, just saying that, great character. He is a good wrestler as well. He'd been there for 30 years. And if you look at it, did it ever get tiring when he was there? Did you ever get sick of it? I don't know if anyone ever was like, ugh, Undertaker again. I don't recall ever feeling that way because he was never pushed down your throat because he barely ever had the title. And for the most part, you were always like, how come he's not the champion? They don't make him the champion ever. It was so rare that he was the world champ. And so, you got to put him on then.
Do you remember when Cena was coming back for WrestleMania 36 and they were saying the greatest of all time returns tonight?
Yeah. Yes, I do.
Mm.
Yeah. See, and that's when I mentioned Cena when we were doing it. I was like, Cena, I mean, when you do the whole everybody's generation and time and stuff like that, Cena's there then too. Well, we're getting into our next show, so you know.
Yeah, well, that's a good place to that, because we will be back to do that. We'll I'll clear it with Vince and Jeff, and the next time you see us, we'll be doing these specials as often as we feel necessary. So as long as
we could do specials on, we could do history of the IC title, which is my favorite. It could be like the top champions IC and what the hell has happened to the belt since then. Like it used to mean something and now doesn't have that same feeling that it did back in the day of like Mr. Perfect and everything. We could rank greatest matches of all time in our own opinion, top 5 ever in our minds, and why, because you won't believe what my second best match.
Hey, I love that podcast. I love that podcast we did with the years, like the best in the world years. Like that came out of nowhere when we did that. So yeah, I think we'll hook that up. We'll leave people with that will come back in a few weeks, and we'll do the Rushmore show, and see what we end up with. See what we end up with as a criteria in terms of what goes on there, because I think doing it your way in terms of looking at loads of different versions of it and then coming to the end and seeing what's most important. Maybe Hogan or Austin get bumped off. I don't think so, but
there's spoiler alert. That's never happening. 2 biggest names that's ever been in that business. All right. Well, thanks for watching, everybody, and joining us on the Russo brand. Glad to have chipped in. Hope you had some laughs with us and enjoyed our nonsense. You can catch me and Billy doing a podcast, and that's on every Tuesday, and that is the Dirty Sheets podcast. Look for that. We're going to have a spin-off show that has not been announced what the name is yet, because that's a little bit of a secret, because we don't know the name of it yet either. So that'll be coming out. And if you want to check out my nonsense, I don't really talk wrestling unless something happens. It used to be a wrestling show. But
you telling me you didn't get into the what's it called? Speaking out stuff this week on your show.
Maybe it was 5 minutes. And what the funny thing I said is someone wrote in and said, I can't wait to hear Cav's opinion on the speaking out thing and everything that happened in wrestling. And when I read this on the show, I said, if you want to know, tune into the fucking Dirty Sheets, because I ain't talking about wrestling on this damn show. So, my show is just anything that happened in life that week, sports, nonsense, whatever. Have a listen, Lingus Mafia podcast, and you'll see what we're talking about. For Mr. Billy Body, should I say your full name? I have it written on the side here. Mr. Shit Disturber, Satin Killer, your own personal dirty Jesus, Mr. Billy Body. I'm Cav Manning. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.
Let me see what